Alrighty, welcome back, everyone. We just got to the third Saturday in October. Incredible game between Alabama and Tennessee up there in Knoxville this upcoming weekend, but we got a couple other SEC matchups, and we will get to the big one tomorrow, I promise you that. But let's get to LSU-Arkansas to start this thing off, because this is a game that frankly doesn't jump off the page, right? Two teams that are playing good football right about now. I believe Arkansas 4-2, LSU 5-1, coming off a huge win over Ole Miss. Going to Arkansas after this type of win is dangerous. We saw it with Tennessee. It was not necessarily a situation that they were fully ready to walk into, and Arkansas took full advantage. And frankly, I just think this is a much better Arkansas team than we're giving them credit for right now. So it's going to be interesting. We'll learn a lot about LSU's mental toughness, about their leadership in a lot of ways, and it's going to be really fun to watch. And the thing is, it does sound like Taylor Green is going to be good to go in this game. Getting that bye week was absolutely huge for them. Suffered a bone bruise in that game against Tennessee, so will be interesting to see how 100% he is. Maybe he's not quite the running threat that they might need him to be in this game. So definitely something to watch. And if he can't get going the way, if he's 80%, 70%, then Arkansas's got a little bit of an issue here. But the Arkansas O-line has done an incredible job, or at least a couple of weeks ago they did an incredible job against that Tennessee front. The LSU pass rush is a little bit different. They throw a ton of bodies at you. They come from a lot of different perspectives. It's not necessarily just edge rushers and linebackers. They'll bring a corner. They'll bring Major Burns on a corner blitz, and they'll make problems for you there. So the offensive tackles, Fernando Carmona, Keyshawn Blackstock, have to be just incredible in this game. I know Blackstock played a little bit worse of a game against Tennessee, so maybe that's the one that they attack a little bit more aggressively if you're LSU. And LSU's got two games coming forward, at A&M and then at home against Alabama. You don't want to walk into those with with two losses on your schedule. You probably can't walk into those with two losses on your schedule if you want to possibly make it to the CFP. And then if somehow you get out of those games with only one loss, a lot of things can happen, but we'll get to that when we get there. But incredible game, one of those that is very sneaky. Arkansas could possibly get to 5-2, become somewhat of a player in the SEC, or LSU could possibly throw their hat into the ring for the SEC title. So going to be really interesting to watch this one unfold. Couple of players to watch here is Andrew Armstrong is going to be an interesting player in this game. He's one of those wide receivers that if you haven't watched Arkansas, if you haven't gotten a chance to click over to the Razorbacks, he is well worth your time. Number 2 is absolutely special. He is one of the more athletic guys on the football field whenever he steps on it. He makes at least one play a game, which doesn't make any sense. I'll be totally honest with you. So a very, very fun player. One of those guys that against an LSU back end that is exploitable, I expect him to get the ball a ton in this game. And then we got to Nico Slaughter. He's got to make plays pretty much left and right in this one, whether it's run fits with Caden Durham possibly getting out of the backfield, whether it's, guarding a lot of these receivers on this back end, whether it's kind of blitzing from time to time. He's a super important player and very, very versatile for this defense. So whatever he does on this on Saturday could very well dictate how well this Arkansas defense is going to be playing on Saturday. As for LSU, Aaron Anderson has been absolutely incredible this year, and Kyron Lacey kind of stole the show last week, but this was their leading receiver going into that game. I'm not certain that he is coming out. He very well could be, but a very talented player coming out of that slot position for LSU, and when you look at Arkansas, there's a lot to like about that defense. They do such a good job of disguising stuff. I'm blanking on the DC's name right now, but he's done an incredible job. A very, very good defensive coordinator, and LSU will have their hands full. I think they need a guy that can just get yards after the catch. I think they need that guy to run drag, run a screen pass that gets him out on the edge and gets him 30 yards and really opens this game up. So when you need that kind of security blanket, if you will, I think Aaron Anderson could be that type of guy, along with Mason Taylor, obviously. And then we got to talk about Whit Weeks. This guy's been absolutely incredible, especially since Harold Perkins has gone out with injury. He's been playing at an all-SEC, all-American level at linebacker. Been absolutely all over the place, and one of those guys that if you're going to stop Jaquindon Jackson, he's going to have a huge, huge game in this one. And then keys to the game. Who can start fast is probably the most important thing to me, because Arkansas coming off a bye after beating Tennessee, LSU coming off an overtime thriller that they very much needed. That is the recipe for a slow start. No two ways about that. So who can kind of curb that, who can handle that and get out to an early lead? probably is in pretty good shape going forward in this game. So whoever can throw that first punch, you feel pretty good about where you're going the rest of the way. And then LSU's edge rushers, and this is not necessarily just about the pass rush. Now, they can get home. LSU had 27 pressures, 7 sacks against Ole Miss. They were all over the place. I think getting to Taylon Green is going to be a little bit tougher with how good he is at evading pressure, but at the end of the day, you also need to account for his legs in a lot of different ways. On those read options, on a lot of those different things, those edge rushers need to be very disciplined. You need to either get upfield and be able to take away that mesh point, or you need to stay a little bit more downfield and make sure he can't exploit you on a scramble where you open a gap. So a lot of things that LSU is going to have to do, and those edge rushers are going to be asked to do, not just be full go going at the quarterback, but play a little bit more nuanced on Saturday for sure. And then physicality up front. Arkansas is going to try to run the ball. LSU has been much better on the defensive line at being able to at least hold serve against a lot of these elite offensive linemen. So it'll be interesting to see what they can do. It's one of those things that you don't feel great about LSU stopping it absolutely cold, but maybe they can do just enough. Stop him to 80 yards, to 90 yards, and make it not this massive game for Jaquindon Jackson where he totally takes over. And then on the other side, can LSU find the run game? Can they be the team that is able to enforce their will a little bit? The run blocking has not been good at all this year, so going to have to find it one way, or a one-dimensional offense is a lot easier to defend, I can promise you that. So going to be interesting to watch this one unfold. I think it's one that LSU badly needs. It's one that Arkansas, if they win it, a lot of things get interesting in the SEC, but I do think LSU ekes this one out. I don't think it's a very pretty game for LSU. I don't think it's perfect by any means, but at the end of the day, I do think they get it done. I think Caden Durham is actually going to have a big-time game in this one, whether it's receiving or rushing. I think he's going to have plenty of space to be able to run, and we'll see what happens. It's one of those games that seems a little bit more under the radar, and one that I'm sure you weren't necessarily circling at the beginning of the season, but both these teams playing really, really good football right now, and cannot wait to see them face off on Saturday. Moving forward, this is a little bit more off the radar, but the reality is Missouri could save their season right here. They could get back on the right track. They could be that one-loss team heading into an Alabama game, and frankly, you can lose that one, and you can still roll on and possibly get into the playoffs. So a lot of things on the table for this team. They're coming off that UMass win after just getting absolutely steamrolled by A&M. Hopefully they'll be able to refocus, because everything is still on the table for Missouri. Just got to be able to win at least this game and then move forward and probably win a couple that are going to be tough as well. But Auburn's kind of in a weird spot the last couple of weeks. Lost a really gross one to Arkansas, was on track to beat Oklahoma, then the pick six happened, fought against Georgia, but it just was never really enough to be able to win that game. So you got to flush all that. You got to just play really, really good football on one Saturday, and frankly, I think it would flush away a lot of the worries from this early part of the season. You get a ranked win on the road against a team that, frankly, very few people are going to pick you against. You have to feel very confident about where you are going forward, or at least the future of this program going forward. And then the biggest thing is, was A&M game an anomaly for for Missouri, or was it just who they are? Or is this back end as weak as it looked against A&M, or is it a little bit just A&M was executing at a ridiculously high level? I think it might be a little bit of both, and we'll see how badly Auburn can kind of take advantage of that. Some players to watch. Cam Coleman just has to be a bigger part of this offense. I think Keandre Lambert-Smith is obviously leading the way. Love what Malcolm Simmons is doing. Perry Thompson is someone that I'd love to get involved more, but when you talk about that deep threat that's going to cause all types of problems for corners for Missouri, and frankly, play kind of that Noah Thomas type role that A&M had in that game a couple of weeks ago, I think Cam Coleman can do that, no doubt about it. So a very talented player, and could give them the couple of shots that they possibly need in this game. And then we got Keldrick Falk, a very talented defensive lineman for Auburn, and one of those guys that Missouri is a good offense right now. If you take away that run game, they are not that great of an offense right now. If you can possibly stonewall Marcus Carroll as well as Nate Noel at the line of scrimmage, it's going to be a long day, because Brady Cook has not necessarily proven he can make the big-time plays he needs to down the stretch of games. And then let's talk about Marcus Carroll, a very talented running back, transferred over from Georgia State this past offseason and played a really good game last weekend against UMass. He's one of those guys that I really think is very, very capable of any breakout at any time this season. Now, having Nate Noel obviously helps him split some of those carries, but when you have those two guys, I think you have plenty at your disposal. Can they find the openings in the run game is going to be huge, and Marcus Carroll, kind of the bigger back, might be a little bit easier to figure that out with. And then we got Drayden Norwood. This back end of Missouri just got downright embarrassed against A&M, and frankly, Auburn can do the exact same thing. Although they're not this incredible world-beating team, not nearly the team that A&M is, they can hit deep balls. That's what they do. That's what they like to do. And frankly, if Drayden Norwood doesn't play a lot better football than he did against A&M, that's exactly what they're going to do. So he needs to play really, really good football, not just over the top playing really good coverage, but coming down to the box, getting Jarquez Hunter on the ground. A lot of things are going to fall on the shoulder of Drayden Norwood in this game. Some keys to the game. I think explosive plays are going to decide this one, plain and simple. I think when you look at both these teams, remarkable wide receiver cores, two quarterbacks that, although aren't, jump off the page talented, can execute the ball and can get it into the hands of these receivers, and then incredible things happen. There's so many different playmakers all across the field. I think when it comes down to it, you could very easily be looking at the stat and says, who had the more 20-plus yard plays? That's probably your winner, if I had to imagine. And then the other sort, limiting quarterback mistakes. Both these quarterbacks have been struggling in kind of different ways. Brady Cook hasn't necessarily been turning over the ball aggressively. What he has been doing is missing receivers in big-time moments. He's been missing big plays that could have been touchdowns. He's been missing, that big third-down conversion, overthrowing guys. It's just little things that he needs to get kind of figured out. It's been a problem for quite some time, so hopefully he can figure it out relatively quickly. But as of right now, that is the biggest thing for him. Just stay clean. And then Peyton Thorne. I don't have to tell anyone that he has to limit the mistakes at quarterback, because the reality is he didn't have any turnovers against Georgia, played a pretty good game, really executed at a pretty high level, and although they came out on the wrong side of it, had a number of plays that made it look like, okay, that's the Peyton Thorne that we have become a little bit more accustomed to seeing. And then you got to win at the line of scrimmage. No two ways about that. All these playmakers on the outside, it's going to be so much dedicated towards the pass game and making sure you don't get that big play on you. Run lanes will open. So who can win that line of scrimmage, who can kind of condense those run lanes a little bit better, is probably going to be a huge, huge piece in this game. Jarquez Hunter on one side, absolutely incredible. You got Nate Noel and Marcus Carroll on the other. All of those guys can make you pay on the ground game. So whoever can squeeze those holes, whoever can keep everything kind of pinned in just a little bit, doesn't have to be perfect by any means, but put them in a position where they have to be one-dimensional, and then it just comes down to who offense can execute in the pass game, which will be very interesting to watch because neither are executing all that great in the pass game. But at the end of the day, I'm going to go with the upset here. I don't love what Missouri's having right now. I don't fully understand what all of the issues are, I'll be honest, but at the end of the day, that back end seems to be very attackable. Auburn has the players to attack it. I don't know if they can get home on the defensive line the way that they need to, and then if Peyton Thorne has time, he's not a great player, but you give him plenty of time back there, he is going to make you pay. So I think Auburn gets this one done. I think Missouri's season comes a little bit to an end, kind of the same way Tennessee's would or Alabama's would at the end of the week. Just you're going to have a huge uphill battle the rest of the way, and I just think Auburn's one of the big-time upsets of the weekend. So it's going to be an interesting game, one of those that you could go pretty much any which way. Missouri blowout, Missouri close win, Auburn blowout, Auburn close win, and you could talk me into it. But as of right now, I am going to go Auburn getting that close win, one of the few upsets of this upcoming weekend, at least in my eyes, just in terms of you got a couple of toss-up games that I'm just not counting upsets, if I'm being totally honest with you. But let's take our second break here, and when we come back, we got to get to the Big 12. We got a couple of big-time matchups, Colorado heading over to Arizona, as well as Kansas State playing West Virginia. Huge games that will have a ton to do with what the Big 12 is going forward, so we'll break it down right after this.